In my favorite scene in my favorite show, Ted Lasso, the title character steps into a conflict that teaches us all a lesson, that it's better to be curious than judgmental. Conflict is one of the great sources of anxiety that leads to burnout. Whenever we face conflict, we have two opposing options. We can either become judgmental and defensive, or we can be curious. Here's the kicker. We can't be both judgmental and curious at the same time. A great way to shut down the anxiety of conflict is to turn off the judgmental part of our brain by becoming intentionally curious about our opponent. Acting toward others with compassion, empathy, and curiosity will help you understand their motivations and actions. This understanding will allow you to be gracious and loving in the face of anger and opposition. This is especially true when it comes to our critics. Sometimes their words can sting because they echo our own inner critic. Rather than becoming defensive when criticized, we need to learn to love our critics by listening to them well. Don't assume that your critics are right just because you feel guilt or shame. Reserve your evaluation of their words for a time when you can work through your own emotions. Remain curious about your critic. Thank them for coming to you. Honor the courage it took for them to say these things. Restate their criticism in your own words to make sure you've really understood them and to make them feel heard. Try to discover not only what they mean, but what led them to say these things. Get the story behind the story. Ask about their life, their work, and their family. Show that you are genuinely interested in them as a person, even in the face of their criticism. After you have made a relational connection, ask your critic for suggestions about what you could do differently. Thank them for their suggestions, but don't commit to anything. Instead, tell them you'd like to take some time to think through what they've said. Ask if they would be available to answer further questions, if you have any. Stay curious. Keep asking questions until they give you something practical. Staying curious about your critic or opponent will open up space for conversation and resolution. Learn to ask good, open-ended questions that give the other person a chance to be seen, heard, and understood. In the Weary Leader's Guide to Burnout, I offer some practical tips for how you can respond to your critics with love and grace without falling into people-pleasing behavior.